Hi all. So moving on from my last video, given the nature of this one being crushes, it's come to light. It's come to my realization that there's actually an inaccuracy in my last video. But I thought rather than create a whole new video, it's probably easier just to sort of correct it in amongst other things in this one. So basically, my first crush started in I would say at the end of the first year of my secondary school, or towards there anyway. This is sort of like where it became obvious to me, but wasn't obvious to me at the time. And basically, in my primary school, I spent all my time on my own, isolated. I wasn't interacting with any of the other pupils there. Although, well, no, not really. So anyway, so in my secondary school, a couple of boys approached me and said, "Oh, do you want to sort of like tag along with us?" Obviously, they were aware that I was sort of like on my own. I wasn't mixing with any of the other classmates. So yeah, these boys in my class approached me and said, do you want to tag along with us? So that's basically what we did. We hanged out together. So there's four of us all together. One of the boys in the group had an extra warm personality, and he sort of like very welcoming, very accepting, and sort of made me feel at ease and accepted, which is something I hadn't really experienced before. So we hanged out together. I obviously must have started warming to him, although I wasn't consciously aware of it. But then we broke up for the summer. I think it was a 6-week break, and then we come back. During the 6-week break, I started missing two of the group. This boy with the extra warm personality was overweight, and the other one wasn't. And I don't know, it's all a bit alien to me, that one was. So anyway, so we come back from the summer break, and I make the mistake of telling them, oh, I had like stomach cramps, missing two of the group, but in particular there's this one with the extra warm personality. And I don't even if the teacher approached me after sort of like telling a couple of the classmates. I don't know. I know at least one of the other classmates approached me and asked me questions about it. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, they were friends, and I missed them, and that was it. Like, I just didn't think anything more of it. I didn't think anything more of it until it sort of like became obvious to me after finishing school and a year on YTS that I was gay. And I say this first crush was really, really subtle, and I didn't think anything really of it. Shortly after, mentioned the stomach cramps and missing their company. The one with the extra warm personality just sort of suddenly disappeared, and I found out later that he actually moved from the area. But whether he sort of like removed himself from the group prior to moving out the area, I don't know. But I didn't think anything of it anyway. So this would have been somewhere in my second year of secondary school, I think. During the third year of my secondary school, I was involved in a recreational activity outside the school, and I was amongst a group of boys there, and I lost contact with them. They were ahead of me. They were climbing over stones. I was sort of reluctant to climb over stones because these stones were right next to the sea, basically. But anyway, they broke off. Whether they were quicker on their feet than me, I don't know. But anyway, there was some distance between us. And the next thing, then I lose my footing on these stones and I fall into the sea. And I can't swim. I was absolutely terrified. And the best of it is that the water wasn't even that deep. I could have stood up if I was consciously aware and not in fear of the water. I could have stood up and just saved myself, basically, but there you go. So anyway, I must have been flapping my arms about and probably making noises in the sea. anyway, they did gain the attention of the group ahead of me, and one of them came and saved me and pulled me out, basically. And he made a point of saying, well, look, you could have just stood up. Obviously, I didn't know. I just assumed C, and it's going to be deep. And then I just panicked and flapping my arms about. But it sort of drove home to me just how dangerous it can be, actually, if you sort of like lose contact with the rest of the group, especially if you're in a dangerous location like where the sea is, especially if you can't swim. So that sort of drummed it home to me, and that we sort of like come away from this recreational activity now. I don't know who I mentioned it to. It might have been to the actual boy who I developed a second crush on. I don't know. I think it probably was, actually. He might sort of like commented on, oh, why are you on your own and all the rest of it. And I said, well, I'm not happy, basically. And I probably told him about I did tell him about the incident with the sea and that. And anyway, he sort of took an extra effort then to sort of check on me then. And then I sort of must have misinterpreted this. And over a period of time, I sort of like developed a crush on him, basically. Totally innocent, obviously. I wasn't even consciously aware of it, although I was aware that I suppose my focus was more on him than perhaps my lessons at times. And yet, for some reason, I just dismissed it. But then there was another boy then who was who I was sort of like friends with, who was part of the group of four of us prior, and I don't know, he was a bit effeminate, I suppose you would class it as that. It didn't mean anything to me at all. I valued his friendship. Sometimes he would do things which he probably shouldn't, mannerisms. And I don't know, because obviously, this guy did nothing for me whatsoever, and I wasn't particularly happy with some of his mannerisms, and I would sort of like call them out, basically. And perhaps because I was doing this, the perception of my peers is, oh no, there's nothing wrong with this guy, and then for the bulk of the reactions that I was getting, I was sort of like being treated like everybody else, until perhaps this crush on this boy sort of like developed to a point where it was being noticed, and then perhaps this is when the gay calling out was happening. But I wasn't consciously aware of what was going on. As I say, I'm aware that sort of my focus is on him, but for some reason I'm just dismissing it and not thinking that it's something that should be a concern, really. And I don't know, he just continued, and the crush grew stronger. Obviously, nothing happened. We kept our distance in class. He stopped sort of like going out of his way to make sure I was all right. I don't know. Looking back, I would say there's a clear element there that everybody knew exactly what was going on. As to regards on me having a crush on him, he probably thought it was funny to a point, encouraged it to a point, and that was that. Like, but he encouraged a bit that that was it. But I just wasn't consciously aware. I just didn't sort of like ring home to me that it was something that I should be concerned about. So yeah, and then obviously, as I say, I finished secondary school there. I moved out of that part of the country to another part of the country, and as I say, all the rest is covered in the last video. But my focus on the last video was one of masculinity, and that's perhaps why this has sort of like been overlooked. I said in my last video that I didn't do anything that I was aware of that could sort of like cause people to say gay to me and all the rest of it. But then obviously on reflection of crushes, then yeah, I can see now looking back, why that might have happened. And then from my perception, as I say, there was this boy who was a bit effeminate, who I valued his friendship, but then some of his mannerisms, I wasn't happy with. And then perhaps this is where my perception that I was sort of still straight came from. I don't know. Peer influence being what it is, who's to say, innit? So, yeah, so I thought I'd just make that clear and clear up the inaccuracy of my last video. So, if you want to leave comments, please do so, and thank you for watching.